The siege lasted 18 hours, though time had become a fluid concept for those undergoing the transformation. Felix found himself perceiving the flow of events from multiple temporal perspectives simultaneously. The immediate tactical situation, the longer-term genetic restructuring occurring in all the survivors, and the vast cosmic timetable that governed the network's activities across the galaxy. The maddened creatures from previous crashes had settled into a pattern of probing attacks, testing the defenses while avoiding direct confrontation. They seemed to understand that their prey was changing, becoming something they couldn't easily consume. But their patience was limited, and Felix could sense their growing desperation as their incomplete transformation demanded constant genetic material to sustain itself. Within the crash site, the three factions had reached an uneasy truce born of necessity. Commander Voss's resistors maintained their armed perimeter. Chief Engineer Walsh's group continued working on what Felix now realized was an attempt to construct a communications array, and the transformed survivors had established themselves as mediators between the various groups. It was Technician Phillips who provided the breakthrough that changed everything. "I can see the solution," she announced during what had become an impromptu council meeting in the ship's devastated medical bay. Her transformation had stabilized somewhat, leaving her with cognitive abilities that operated on scales beyond normal human comprehension, but without the complete loss of sanity they had feared. "The network's testing protocol has multiple stages," she continued, her enlarged eyes reflecting patterns of light that seemed to show mathematical equations. "We've passed the initial adaptation phase and the information acquisition phase. We're currently in the integration phase, where the surviving population must achieve consensus about their transformation." Felix leaned forward, his enhanced senses picking up the complex harmonics in Phillips's voice that carried additional layers of meaning. "What kind of consensus? Unanimous acceptance or unanimous rejection?" Phillips replied. "The network cannot integrate a partially transformed species. Either all surviving members must accept the enhancement process, or all must refuse it. Partial acceptance leads to the kind of insanity we've seen in the previous crash survivors." Dr. Kane, whose transformation had proceeded along biological lines that made her appear more plant than animal, rustled her silver-threaded hair in what Felix had learned was her equivalent of a frown. "That's not a choice at all. We've already been exposed to the atmospheric agents. Rejection at this point would mean death." "Not death," Phillips corrected. "Devolution. The network has protocols for reversing the transformation, but only if it's unanimous. A few individuals cannot force the choice on others." Commander Voss, who had been listening from the edge of the group, stepped forward. Her own transformation was becoming impossible to hide. Her skin had developed a metallic sheen, and her movements had gained the fluid grace that characterized the enhanced survivors. But her expression remained stubbornly human. "So you're telling me that unless everyone agrees to become whatever you've become, we all die anyway?" Chun, whose form had become so luminescent that he seemed to be made of living light, nodded slowly. "The choice is collective evolution or collective extinction. Individual preferences are no longer relevant." Felix could sense the growing tension in the room. Through his enhanced empathic abilities, he could feel the emotional states of everyone present. Voss's fear and anger, Walsh's desperate hope that technology could provide a third option, Kane's scientific fascination warring with her attachment to her human identity, and, underlying it all, the patient presence of the planetary network waiting for their decision. "There's something else," Phillips added, her voice taking on the harmonic complexity that indicated she was accessing information from the network itself. "The cosmic threat I mentioned earlier is not a distant possibility. The void intelligences have already begun probing this galactic region. We have perhaps 6 months before they arrive in force." The implication was staggering. Felix had been thinking of their choice in terms of personal survival and adaptation, but Phillips was suggesting that their decision would affect humanity's ability to defend itself against an existential threat. "Show us," Felix said. "If you can access the network's information, show us what we're really facing." Phillips's response was to project the information directly into their enhanced consciousness. Felix found himself experiencing a shared vision that encompassed not just visual images, but direct conceptual understanding. The void intelligences were ancient beyond comprehension, entities that had existed in the empty spaces between galaxies since before biological life had evolved anywhere in the cosmos. They viewed consciousness as a destructive force that introduced chaos into the mathematical perfection of physical law. Their solution was systematic sterilization, the conversion of all matter into perfectly ordered, non-living crystal formations. They had already consumed 3 smaller galaxies, turning billions of worlds into lifeless geometric monuments to their concept of perfection. Their advance toward the Milky Way was methodical and unstoppable by any individual species, no matter how advanced. The galactic network's purpose became clear in this context. It wasn't just about evolutionary enhancement. It was about creating a collective consciousness powerful enough to resist the void intelligence's reality-altering abilities. Every enhanced species added their unique perspectives and capabilities to a growing Gestalt intelligence that could match the cosmic threat. When the vision ended, Felix found himself back in the medical bay, but his understanding of their situation had fundamentally changed. This wasn't about personal choice anymore. It was about species survival in a cosmos that contained forces actively hostile to the existence of life itself. "How many species have joined the network?" Dr. Kane asked, her plant-like features showing the strain of processing the shared vision. 47 confirmed, with another dozen in various stages of integration, Phillips replied. But that's not enough. The mathematical models indicate that the network needs at least 100 enhanced species to generate sufficient collective consciousness to resist the void intelligences. Chief Engineer Walsh, who had been silent throughout the discussion, finally spoke up. "What about our communications array? If we can contact Earth, warn them about what's coming." "Earth is already being prepared," Chin said. "There are other worlds like this one throughout human space, other testing sites. But warning them won't help unless we demonstrate that the integration process can be successful." Felix realized they had reached the crucial moment. The transformation was now irreversible for all of them. The atmospheric agents had penetrated too deeply into their systems. But they still had to choose how to proceed, as a unified group accepting their evolution, or as a fractured collection of individuals fighting changes they could no longer prevent. "I need to address all 3 factions," Felix said. "Everyone needs to understand what we're really choosing between." The assembly convened in the ship's main cargo hold, the only space large enough to accommodate all the survivors. Felix stood before a crowd that barely resembled the human crew that had crashed on this world less than 48 hours earlier. The changes were now visible in everyone. Enhanced physical capabilities, altered sensory organs, and the beginning of the bioluminescent qualities that seemed to characterize fully integrated network members. But more than the physical changes, Felix could sense the psychological stress that was tearing the group apart. The resistors like Voss were fighting transformation that was already too advanced to stop. The adapters like Walsh were trying to find technological solutions to biological problems. And the transformed like Chun were struggling to maintain connection with their less enhanced companions. "We have a choice to make," Felix began, his enhanced voice carrying clearly to every corner of the hold. "Not about whether to change. That decision was made for us when we breathed this planet's atmosphere. Our choice is about how to change, and whether we do it together or separately." He gestured toward Phillips, who stepped forward and began projecting the same vision of the void intelligences that they had experienced in the medical bay. The crowd watched in stunned silence as the scope of the cosmic threat became clear. "This is what we're being prepared to face," Felix continued. "Not as individual humans, but as part of a galactic consciousness that spans millions of worlds and billions of enhanced beings. The transformation we're undergoing isn't meant to replace our humanity. It's meant to preserve the essential qualities of consciousness itself." Commander Voss stepped forward, her metallic skin reflecting the bioluminescent displays from Phillips's projection. "And if we refuse? If we choose to remain human? Then we become like the creatures outside," Felix replied honestly. "Incomplete transformations, driven mad by the contradiction between enhanced abilities and unchanged psychology. And eventually, we die, either from the stress of the incomplete change, or when the void intelligences arrive and sterilize this region of space." A new voice spoke from the crowd, one of Walsh's technicians, a man named Rodriguez whose transformation had enhanced his analytical abilities. What about our individuality? Our personal identity? Do we lose who we are? Chen answered, his luminous form pulsing with gentle light. You expand who you are. I'm still Marcus Chun, with all my memories and personality traits. But I'm also connected to the experiences and knowledge of every other enhanced being in the network. Individual consciousness doesn't disappear. It becomes part of something infinitely larger. The discussion continued for hours, with every faction raising concerns and objections. But Felix could sense that the real debate wasn't about the logic of their situation. It was about fear. Fear of change. Fear of losing humanity's unique identity. Fear of surrendering individual autonomy to a collective consciousness. It was Dr. Kane who finally articulated the crucial insight. We're not choosing between humanity and something alien, she said, her plant-like features somehow managing to convey deep emotion. We're choosing between a humanity that's capable of surviving in a hostile cosmos and a humanity that's doomed to extinction by its own limitations. The vote, when it finally came, was closer than Felix had hoped, but decisive enough to proceed. 32 survivors chose to accept the full transformation, 8 chose to attempt reversal, and the final group abstained, leaving the decision to the majority. But as they prepared to undergo the final stages of integration with the planetary network, Felix realized that their real test was just beginning. The Void intelligences had been monitoring their progress, and their decision to join the Galactic network had not gone unnoticed. In the distance, beyond the crimson sky, something vast and geometrically perfect was beginning to eclipse the alien stars. The final transformation began at dawn, though the concept of dawn had little meaning on a world where the sky had turned from crimson to a deep purple shot through with veins of silver light. Felix stood with the other survivors who had chosen full integration, watching as the alien structures across the landscape began to resonate in harmony with their enhanced nervous systems. The 8 who had chosen reversal lay in medical pods that Chief Engineer Walsh had constructed using a combination of human technology and alien biological components. The pods were designed to slowly extract the atmospheric agents from their systems while supporting their bodies through the traumatic process of genetic de-enhancement. Dr. Kane monitored their vital signs, her plant-like features showing deep concern for the risks involved. Their survival probability is approximately 43%, Phillips reported, her enhanced cognition now fully integrated with the planetary network's information systems. The reversal process was never intended for subjects who had progressed this far into the transformation. But the network is providing medical support protocols that should improve their chances. Felix nodded, though his attention was increasingly focused on the cosmic scale events unfolding around them. Through his connection to the network, he could sense the approach of the Void intelligence that had been tracking their progress. It was vast beyond comprehension, a geometric structure the size of a small moon, composed of crystalline formations that imposed mathematical order on whatever they touched. How long do we have? He asked Phillips. 4 hours, 17 minutes until it enters this system's gravitational influence, she replied. Once it arrives, it will begin the conversion process. All biological matter on this world will be transformed into ordered crystal structures unless we can demonstrate sufficient collective consciousness to resist its reality-altering field. The survivors who had chosen full integration stood in a circle around the largest of the alien structures, their bodies now showing the complete range of enhanced capabilities. Chen had become almost entirely luminescent, his form seeming to exist partially outside normal three-dimensional space. Torres and Mills had merged into a collective entity that moved as one being while maintaining 2 distinct personalities. Dr. Kane had developed into something that was part human, part plant, and part living computer, capable of interfacing directly with the planet's biological systems. And Felix himself, he could feel his consciousness expanding beyond the boundaries of his individual mind, connecting with the network nodes scattered across the galaxy. Through this connection, he could perceive the experiences of thousands of other species who had undergone similar transformations, each contributing their unique perspectives to the growing galactic consciousness. Are you ready? Chen asked, though the question was transmitted directly through their shared mental link rather than spoken aloud. Felix examined his companions through his enhanced senses. Each of them retained their essential personality while gaining access to capabilities that transcended their original biological limitations. They were still recognizably the people they had been, but enhanced far beyond normal human potential. "We're ready," he confirmed. The integration process began with a harmonic resonance that seemed to originate from the planet's core. Felix felt his individual consciousness begin to merge with the collective awareness of his companions, their thoughts and memories becoming accessible to him, while his own experiences flowed into the shared pool of knowledge. But this was just the beginning. As their local collective stabilized, it began connecting with the broader galactic network, linking their small group to the millions of enhanced beings scattered across thousands of worlds. Felix found himself experiencing existence from perspectives he could never have imagined. The cosmic awareness of beings who live in the hearts of stars, the quantum consciousness of entities who existed simultaneously across multiple dimensions, the deep-time perspective of species that had transcended physical existence entirely. Through the network, he could sense the void intelligence's approach with perfect clarity. It was a manifestation of mathematical order, so pure that it could impose its vision of reality on the matter and energy around it. Biological consciousness, with its messy emotions and unpredictable creativity, was an affront to its concept of cosmic perfection. "It's beginning the conversion process," Phillips announced, her voice now carrying harmonics that resonated directly with the quantum foundations of space-time. "The planet's outer atmosphere is being restructured into crystalline formations." Felix could see the effect through his enhanced perception. The crimson sky was slowly being replaced by geometric patterns of perfect crystal that spread inward like a slow-motion explosion. Where the crystal touched the organic formations of the planet's surface, they transformed into mathematically precise structures that pulsed with cold, sterile light. "Collective consciousness protocols are now active," Chen reported. "All network nodes in this galactic region are focusing their combined awareness on our location." Felix felt the full power of the galactic network flowing through their small group. Billions of enhanced minds, representing the accumulated wisdom and experience of dozens of species, were uniting their consciousness to resist the void intelligence's reality-altering field. The battle, when it came, was fought not with weapons or technology, but with competing visions of what reality should be. The void intelligence projected its mathematical perfection, attempting to impose order on the chaotic complexity of biological existence. The network responded with the collective creativity of every enhanced consciousness in the galaxy, asserting that diversity and unpredictability were not flaws to be corrected, but essential features of a living cosmos. Felix found himself at the center of this cosmic struggle, his individual perspective becoming a focal point for the network's resistance. Through him, the accumulated knowledge of humanity, its art, its science, its endless capacity for both creation and destruction, flowed into the galactic consciousness and added its unique voice to the collective song. The void intelligence's crystalline formations began to slow their advance, meeting resistance from the planet's biological systems that were now supported by the full power of the network. Where crystal met enhanced organic matter, neither could fully dominate the other, creating hybrid structures that combine mathematical precision with biological adaptability. "It's working," Dr. Kane reported, her plant-like consciousness interfacing directly with the planet's biosphere. "The void intelligence cannot complete the conversion process while we maintain collective resistance." But Felix could sense that this was only a temporary victory. The void intelligence was just one of many, and its retreat from this system would only delay the larger threat. The real battle would come when hundreds of these entities converged on the galactic core, attempting to sterilize all biological consciousness in a coordinated assault. "We need to return to Earth," Felix said, his words transmitted simultaneously through normal speech and the network's quantum communication channels. "Humanity needs to understand what's coming and make the same choice we've made. The integration process is still voluntary," Phillips added, "but only for a limited time. Once the void intelligences begin their final assault, any species that hasn't joined the network will be beyond help." As the immediate threat receded and the alien sky began to return to its natural crimson hue, Felix felt a mixture of triumph and trepidation. They had passed the test, proving that humanity could successfully integrate with the galactic network. But in doing so, they had also attracted the attention of forces that viewed their very existence as an abomination to be corrected. The 8 survivors who had chosen reversal were still alive, their human forms restored but forever changed by their brief experience of enhancement. They would return to Earth as witnesses, carrying the story of what they had seen and warning of the choice that awaited their species. "What happens now?" Commander Voss asked. Her reversal had been successful, but Felix could see in her eyes the knowledge of what she had briefly experienced, the expanded consciousness, the connection to something greater than individual existence, the terrible beauty of the cosmos viewed from an enhanced perspective. "Now we prepare," Felix replied. "The network will provide transport back to human space for those who choose it. But some of us will need to remain here, to serve as a permanent link between humanity and the galactic consciousness." He looked around at his transformed companions, knowing that his own decision was already made. He had become something beyond human, but in doing so, he had gained the ability to help his species navigate the challenges that lay ahead. The void intelligences were coming, bringing with them a vision of reality that left no room for the messy, chaotic, beautiful complexity of conscious life. But they would find that the galaxy was no longer defenseless, no longer divided into isolated species struggling alone against the darkness. Consciousness had found a way to unite, to transcend its individual limitations while preserving its essential creativity. And in that unity, it had discovered the power to reshape reality itself. Felix felt the first stirrings of the network's next phase of expansion, as signals went out to dozens of other worlds where species were beginning their own journeys toward enhancement. The cosmos was about to become a very different place, a place where life could finally match the vast indifference of the void with an equally vast compassion. The real test was just beginning, but for the first time since humanity had ventured into the stars, Felix felt certain that they would not face it alone. 6 months later, Felix floated in the quantum foam that had once been his laboratory aboard the orbital research station Meridian. His consciousness existed simultaneously across multiple dimensional layers, his enhanced awareness capable of perceiving the complex mathematical relationships that governed reality at its most fundamental level. Through the network, he could sense the transformation spreading across human space. Earth had chosen integration after the survivors of Kepler 442c presented their evidence to the Global Council. The process was proceeding more smoothly than it had on the prison world. With proper preparation and understanding, humans were adapting to their enhanced existence with remarkable resilience. Mars had become a research center where human and alien scientists worked together to develop new technologies that combined biological creativity with mathematical precision. Europa now served as a communication hub, its ice-covered surface concealing quantum transmission arrays that linked the Sol system to the broader galactic network. And in the void between stars, vast crystalline formations moved with patient malevolence toward the galactic core. The void intelligences had been reinforced by others of their kind, creating an armada of geometric perfection that spanned light years. Their goal remained unchanged: the complete sterilization of biological consciousness and its replacement with mathematically pure order. Status report, Felix requested, his thoughts transmitted across the quantum channels that connected every enhanced consciousness in the galaxy. The response came from Phillips, whose consciousness now existed as a distributed entity across dozens of worlds. 97 species have achieved full integration. 12 more in progress. The collective consciousness now encompasses approximately 43 billion enhanced individuals. Will it be enough? Felix asked, though he already knew the answer from the mathematical models that ran constantly in the background of his expanded mind. Unknown, Phillips replied with characteristic precision. The void intelligences represent a fundamental force of cosmic order that has existed since the universe began cooling from its initial expansion. They may be beyond any biological consciousness to resist, no matter how enhanced. Felix contemplated this possibility while simultaneously managing 17 different research projects across his local cluster of worlds. The network had changed him beyond recognition, but at his core, he remained driven by the same scientific curiosity that had led to his imprisonment. The difference was that now his curiosity was supported by the accumulated knowledge of millions of enhanced beings. Through the network, he could sense the approach of the final test. The Void Armada would reach the galactic core within the next solar year, beginning their systematic conversion of every star system in their path. When that happened, the galactic consciousness would face its ultimate challenge, proof that diversity and creativity could triumph over perfect order. But Felix had come to understand something that the Void intelligences, for all their cosmic perspective, had missed. Consciousness wasn't just about individual awareness or even collective intelligence. It was about the capacity to dream of realities that didn't yet exist, to imagine possibilities beyond the constraints of current circumstance. The network wasn't just preparing to resist the Void intelligences. It was preparing to transcend them entirely. Every enhanced species contributed its unique vision of what the cosmos could become, adding their dreams to a collective imagination that spanned the galaxy. And in that shared dreaming, Felix could sense the beginning of something unprecedented, not just the preservation of biological consciousness, but its elevation to a new order of existence that would remake the universe according to principles of beauty, wonder, and infinite possibility. The Void intelligence's broad order, but consciousness would answer with something greater, meaning. As Felix contemplated the challenges ahead, he felt a presence he recognized, Dr. Kane, her consciousness reaching across space to touch his own. She had chosen to remain on Kepler 442c, serving as the guardian of the world that had first shown humanity its path toward transcendence. Any regrets? She asked, her thoughts carrying the warmth that had characterized their friendship even before enhancement. Felix considered the question seriously. He thought of his former life, his human limitations, the isolation that had once defined his existence. Then he felt the vast community of consciousness that surrounded him, the billions of enhanced beings who share their knowledge, their experiences, their dreams of what the cosmos could become. None, he replied. We're about to become something the universe has never seen before, something that can stand against forces that have existed since the beginning of time itself. How could I regret being part of that? Through the network, he could sense agreement from across the galaxy. Millions of voices united in purpose, each retaining their individual identity while contributing to something infinitely greater than the sum of their parts. The Void intelligences were coming, bringing with them the promise of perfect order and a threat of cosmic sterilization. But they would find that consciousness had learned to dream on a scale to match their own ancient purpose. And in that dreaming, the galaxy would discover whether life could write its own destiny among the stars. The final transformation was about to begin.